Welcome, friends, new and true, to Living with Intention. I am April Wyatt, your wellness advocate, and I'm here to offer different avenues for wellness for you to place your attention on your intention to create more balance in your life. In our first episode of the series, Exploring Your Essence, we learned from Sophia Grace about the Sophia Code and how the text can help connect you to your essence, as well as we experienced her beautiful toning as she supported us with her divinity. And today we continue to build an understanding about our own designs as humans. And I just have a little knowledge about the human design, but from what I experienced, it's helped me to put things into perspective of my abilities, learning more about me and areas to be more mindful of, so I don't hold any judgment about why I'm experiencing any resistance or comparing myself to others. Okay. So the human design is a wonderful way to really build a better understanding of yourself and of your essence and how you contribute to the world. I invited my next guest, Angela Lund, to share with you her fascinating modality of the human design, so you too can explore your essence and receive more insight about yourself and how you're relating and building that relationship actually to yourself through understanding your own human design. Angela is a wonderful light who's pursuing a lifelong journey to align with purpose. She uses human design, astrology, and gene keys on herself and supports others. So that way you can gain a deeper understanding of who you are and what you came here to do on this earth. Angela describes herself as living a multi-passionate life, doing things she loves, and considers herself a lifelong learner. So I can really relate to Angela. And through her work, she guides people through their journey, helping them to uncover their true genius. So without further ado, please welcome Angela. Thank you, Angela, for being here today with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love sharing and connecting, and the collaboration between two people always creates something new. So I'm so excited to be here.
Exactly. We're actually expanding the collective consciousness as we come together to explore about ways to connect to our essence. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't familiar with you, Angela, can you just give us a little background, a little history of your journey and how you found human design and how it's helped you?
Yeah, I always go back to kind of the beginning. I just came here like this soul that was like, what am I doing here? Who am I? Why am I here? And stalking the self-help section of the bookstore at 10 years old, or like I was just always interested. I'm interested in people and I'm interested in myself, and I've always been interested in being the best version of myself, which kind of led me down the rabbit hole of always trying to fix myself and fix others, which isn't the best energy to be in. But when I look at my south node in astrology, I understand like that was the path I had to take, and now I get to move towards my north node, my purpose after the Saturn return. So I'm moving into this new stage of really deeply understanding myself and why I came here, and then sharing that with others. And so human design came to me. I went back to school. I was in the military. I was in the Navy. I was just like lost, I was a 3-line for the first 30 years, and we could talk about that, but I was just trying everything, right? I was trying this and I was trying this, and I was going to become a chef, and I could not figure out what was my path. I just knew that I and that I was interested in lots of different things, and I was always learning something, and I was always going to change the world with when I found that one right way, right? When I found that one right way, I could help everybody. But I just couldn't find it, and I had burnt myself out. I was worried about my kids being, healthy and perfect and making all the homemade food and stressing. And I was going back to school to get my degree. And I was just doing all the things that I burnt myself out so bad I couldn't hardly get out of bed. I couldn't leave the house. I was having panic attacks constantly. And so I was learning all the ways, the healing tools, the tapping and the meditation and all that. And my friend and I went to this school, the Edgar Cayce School for Transpersonal Psychology. And you have to learn Enneagram and human design and, just the different ways. And it was my first introduction to it. And then it just kept coming, right? It would be on a podcast, or it would be, and I'd learn everything and I'm going to be a human design reader. And then I drop it, right? Because I'd be like, I don't know. I'd do a reading for somebody after I knew, one book worth of knowledge. And they'd be like, okay, like not, I just wasn't there, right? And so I pick it up and I put it down, and I pick it up and I put it down, and it just kept coming back. And once I truly understood, I finally went all in on a coaching program to really deeply learn human design and become a human design reader. It was in that deep dive that I realized why I kept going after all these different things, and I'd go on a high and then I drop it and be like, oh, I don't want nothing to do with it. But human design teaches you why, right? Like I have a really high emotional wave that goes really high, and it's so excited and it pushes all this emotion, but then it drops off a cliff, right? And when it drops off a cliff, I throw whatever I was doing away. And once I realized that this is something that I have for life, I'm always going to get really excited if I find something that lights me up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be the other side where I have to kind of go within and retreat a little bit, but it doesn't have to make it wrong. It doesn't have to make it bad. It doesn't have to mean that I have to throw everything away that I did because now it feels, I'm in a low, right? And now my lows aren't even lows. They're just, I just pushed all that emotion up this cliff. Now I have to take a break. Right? Now I have to focus on something else because I can't just 100 miles an hour or something. And it just gave me so much clarity as to why I am the way I am, who I am, how I operate. And when I got that, I was like, now I want to do this for everybody, right? Now I want everybody to understand them so deeply.
Yes. And it is because then people think that there's something wrong with them. And why do I keep feeling this way? Or why is this cycle is like repeated, but I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere type of thing. I think that's what really helped me when you did my reading and kind of put those pieces together about how, and it's so true. It was like, if anybody's had an astrology reading, it kind of goes along that lines, but it's also about other things with your humanness. And so it really put that into context, just as you said, Angela, of witnessing. Then I could witness as that was happening and go, oh, okay. Then I knew how to navigate it a little easier and not have any doubt or blame on myself for being how I was designed.
Yeah. And you can dive deep. And I love the gene keys too, because they contemplate all of these are just different tools, right? Human design is my first tool I grab. And then I like to look a little into the astrology and a little into the gene keys. And gene keys is something anybody can do. Just look it up. Anybody can look at their gene keys and go through that information. It's a contemplation, right? You don't have to be a reader to understand it. But when I started learning some of the things, one thing, a big key is vanity for me, right? And I never looked at it that way, but I wanted to show up, and that's the low of it, right? The low expression of that key.
Yeah.
But I wanted to show up looking a certain way. I wanted to say things exactly the correct way. Like I wanted everybody to see that I knew what I was talking about, but I was holding myself back because I was never perfect enough. And I wasn't sharing. I wasn't giving. I wasn't being of service because of that vanity piece. And when I saw that and saw how kind of like, ooh, that's something that's a low that I'm living in. And the high of it, the high expression is, yeah, I can be discriminatory and see, where I'm living in my truth and where others are living in their truth. And I can show up in that truth. And that's a whole nother way to look at it. And so I could kind of rewrite the story of that and see it and understand it and bring awareness to it. And now I show up, right? It's in my truth. This is who I am, right? In all of my, highs and lows and glory and evolving self. I'm always evolving, right?
Yes. And I really, really appreciate you saying that we're constantly evolving and changing, because that's what life's all about, is change. And it's how we're navigating through it. And by having human design or gene keys or, all these other lovely modalities we're going to explore in this series, just giving you more insight just eases your mind a little bit. So that way we don't compare ourselves to others, because I can't be Angela. Angela can't be me. I can't be you. You can't be me. We're who we are. And when we appreciate our own qualities and see how we show up, whether it's the highs or lows, we're meeting ourselves where we're at, and really witnessing our own essence of what makes us up. Yes.
Yeah. And then I don't even have to know your design, although I wish I don't like AI programs or what, all of the tech, but could I really get behind knowing everybody's design as soon as I met them so that I knew how to interact with them in the perfect way? I would love that. But I don't need that. I know that when I show up as me and I kind of had cleared out all the other stuff, then it's easier for me to truly see people and kind of notice the little differences. And really I can be like, whoa, this is cool, right? Like I always love people, but it gives me a tool to really see them in this really special way. Like, oh, I wonder what their gift is, and see if I can uncover it just by having a conversation. And I just love it.
Yes. And yes, that's energetically, that's what I do with when I meet somebody. I meet them past their own beliefs of who they are. I see them as their true essence. And so it's wonderful to be able to connect that way and have somebody else witness you in that light too. It helps to bring you back into that present, into your own natural state, that essence that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Angela. Can you give us an example of, I think you did earlier, but just going a little deeper for those who are all new to this human design, like how does it work when you say human design? And there's people that are going to be listening on the podcast and people are going to be watching on a video. So if you could kind of break it down to how like it incorporates astrology and all those other things, and then the different centers of the body and how that works. If you could just in a nutshell kind of give us that insight.
Yeah. Yeah. So most people have heard of astrology. So I always kind of jump there, right? Like most people have heard of it. We understand that the moment of birth, that's why in astrology, you always have to have your birth date, right? And if you're actually doing like a more deep dive than just, what's my sun sign, you have your birth time, because the exact moment that you were born gives you a different program or different who you are than maybe 6 hours later sometimes. Maybe 15 minutes later. I did twins that have a little bit of a difference in how they view the world because of that 15, minutes. And it's super interesting to see. But the reason that this works, we found that science is kind of catching up to astrology and in human design and all of that, because we have these little neutrinos that science has found have some sort of mass to them. They're really, really tiny little particles, and they come from the stars and the sun and the stars and all of the particles moving through every single moment. And when those particles hit us, they basically contain information. And so that we make sure that we have every sort of person in this world, we have information making sure that we're all different, that we're all fulfilling this beautiful tapestry of people, right? Of purposes, of things. And so human design, we take that moment of birth and you get a design date and a birth time. And the two of those come together. 88 days before you're born, you get kind of this body design, and at birth, you get this personality design. And these two things are always working for us. They're always working together to make sure that we're following this path that maybe we chose, that we wanted to come in at this time and in this body and this design is kind of what I believe. But we kind of know what vehicle we're showing up in and how it's going to guide us. And so human design takes astrology into account. So it takes where the sun is, where the moon, where the Jupiter, Saturn, all those things are in the chart. But it also brings in the Chinese I Ching that's thousands of years old. It brings in the Kabbalah tree of life that's thousands of years old. So it brings in, and then it brings in the chakra system. So when we put these all together, we get this map that is kind of in a human body form. It kind of looks like, right? So if you just Google free human design chart, you can pull it up on your own. So if you want to pause this or whatever and pull it up, and you'll see this chart come up, and there's 9 centers, and those 9 centers all equate to a chakra system. So you can see the head, you can see the third eye, you can see the throat. The heart is 2. We've split it into 2 in human design. And then your solar plexus is also 2, your sacral and your root. So we have all 9 centers that correspond to different parts of the body. They correspond to the chakra system. And then we get these channels and these gates. And when I look at a human design chart, I see your circuitry, your what lights up here and sends a signal here, and how do you get that information? And I see your openness. How do you take in other people, right? And how do we take in other people and think it's us? And so when you learn this, you can kind of understand better, right? You can understand yourself better. You can understand why this person walks in the room and they're charging your, emotional center maybe, or they're very defined in the mind. And all of a sudden you're feeling this pressure in your mind to think and to act like you understand what they're saying. And you just get to understand yourself better and kind of let go of some of that stuff and take in the stuff that really, this is what I came here to do. This is who I came here to be. And this is where I just taste people. This is where I taste things.
Yes, that was so perfect how you described that. And I recommend for people to pause this and look up a human design chart so you can see exactly what Angela's talking about. And also, I like how you talked about, you like to see the gates, the channels, how people are wired, how their circuitry runs. Yeah. And so I'm brave and courageous. And Angela, she, of course, did my chart. And so can you just share some key points to share about me? And so that way people can say, and to be honest with you, I want everybody to hear this. I didn't know Angela very well before this. So Angela knew really nothing of me, nothing. And so by her sending me the chart, and then she gave me little descriptions and examples of things that, like she says, the high or the low of the ends of this. Yeah, if anybody's done strength finders, it's like the balconies or the basements, for their personality. That's what it kind of reminds me of. And that's another thing to explore too, strength finders. But moving back to that, of course, a lot of it made sense to me. And then some of it was, well, yes, I witnessed those lows in myself, although because of the work I've done, I'm I'm kind of in the middle. Like I'll feel a little dip and then I'll be like, oh, that's my old programming. That's that old conditioning. And so I can choose to shift this a little bit, but that's also part of my human design that I can witness that as well. So if you don't mind, Angela, just sharing like the key top 1 or 2 things in my chart, so that way people understand, and I'll be the guinea pig.
Yeah. So, and I'm just going to run through some of these really, really quick, but how I always would start with, if you're looking at your chart, what type are you? And that gives you, it's kind of like I'm a Gemini, but every Gemini isn't exactly like me at all, right? So the type is just kind of, how does your aura show up? And so April's a generator, and a generator has a defined sacral. Anytime you have a defined sacral, that little red square, kind of towards the base, it's just above the little brown square. So anytime you have that defined, that means you're a generator, and that means you create the world. 70% of the population is a generator. And so we've got all these generators that are here really to create something, to really build something, to bring this energy towards creativity and building. And so anytime you have that sacral center lit up, you've got this real superpower that says, hey, if I go and follow what really lights me up and I listen to this little fire in my belly, I'm going to be led to the correct thing. And if I don't, if I do a lot of stuff that I don't like, I'm going to drain that and I'm going to be a little burnout, and I'm going to be like, I'm supposed to create all this energy. I don't feel it, right? I might be a little burnout. So that's kind of how you can tell. When I found out I was a manifesting generator, supposed to have all this energy, and I was like, I don't have any energy, but it was because I wasn't doing anything that was lighting me up. I was doing a lot of shoulds and a lot of I have to's and a lot of, forcing myself to work this job and take care of all these young kids and the house and, all the things. And I wasn't really finding little ways that I could keep that fire going. So yeah, first you have to look at your type. And so April's this generator. And so when you're following that sacral fire, you're going to get where you're going to go. And this generator, it's always to respond. So a generator doesn't have to go out and make anything happen. They just have to kind of ask for what they're bringing in, and then they really magnetize that to them. And so things will come up. And for me, like I was asking for more marketing, and I got 3 options, and I had to weigh each option against my sacral, against my, my emotional center. Until I found out which one was for me. And that's kind of how we act when we're a generator. We gonna ask, and then we see what options come up, and not every option that comes up is right. And then you kind of use your authority, which yours is that sacral, yours is that strong yes or no, right? That that you can feel in your gut is correct. And so we kind of get this. I love human design as the mechanics, right? Like this is your type. This is how you respond. This is how you get into alignment. And that could be basically all I gave somebody, and it would get them there. But I love to find out, like, let's deeply explore this. Let's see what your gifts are. Let's see who you came here to be. Let's see what your purpose is. So then I go a little bit deeper, but that would basically get you there, right? If we thought, hey, I am just going to listen to the sacral. I am just going to do what fires me up. I am just going to live in this intuitive place. we would all get
Yes.
there, right? Like naturally.
And for
Okay.
me, it's remembering that I can ask, that I don't get too in the weeds and, think I have to do it all, because then that's more the mind. And then that's when I'm like, well, this isn't fun anymore. What happened? So by me asking and pausing, that's what I do with my morning meditation. So I really set that intention of pausing, of receiving, of just letting all those thoughts just flow through, and yeah, really be as present as I can.
Yeah, and that gets your head out of the way, because that's
Mhm.
every single problem that anybody has, is they're trying to fix it from the mind. Even if you have a defined mind, even if you have this beautiful, strong mind, you still have your mind is never the authority, right? And so you're always trying to figure it out from the mind, because that's what we're taught as human beings. Oh, we've got this mind, we've got to use it. But the mind is beautiful for this conversation that we're having. The mind is beautiful for, reading a book and taking in this knowledge, but making a decision, is this guiding me to the best step, is never from my mind. Because
Mhm.
even the decision I made about the 3 marketing things, the one that I thought was least likely has turned out to be the one that was a full body yes for me. And if I use my
Isn't
mind,
that interesting? Right?
it wouldn't have been. Yeah. It
That's
is so
great.
interesting. It is so interesting. So yeah, so we've kind of we know your type. We know how you get into alignment. We know how you bring in what you want to bring in and get out of that mind, right? And then we move to, I love doing the profile, right? So the profile are those 2 numbers that you'll see there. It's like yours is a 3/5. And so we always have a profile that shows our personality side is for you, the 3, and our design side, which is for you, the 5. So the 3 is going to be more pronounced in because it's personality, and design is kind of where other people could see it, right? Or maybe you kind of know because of your actions, but not quite from the mind. So you're a 3/5, and the first one is always, how do we, if it's a 1, 2, or 3, it's how do we take this in for ourselves? And if it's a 4, 5, or 6, how do we show up for others? So you have a profile that has a 3, the 1 through 3, and a 5, the 4 through 6. So you first take in information through yourself so that you can share it with others. And so we always
Yep,
kind of
that's
look at how
exactly what I do.
yeah. And some people, like I'm a 6 too, so I'm always observing first, right? And then I go in and figure it out.
Mm.
You're I It happens to me. You're an experimenter. You're a scientist. You have to, nobody can tell you. You have to experience it for yourself, right? Like, and you have to kind of try it out and see how it feels and see how it interacts with you. And once you've done that, then you turn into the 5 line for others, which is really
Yes.
that it's bringing this charisma, this strength, this superhero quality, but it really wants to help people. Like
Mhm.
any 5 line I know is like, like they just want to help. They want to fix. They want to bring the answer to people,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh, my mom, she's a really strong 5 line, and we were at lunch, and she was talking to my grandma, and she was just like, gonna fix this. Like, I am gonna fix this. Anything my grandma said, she was like, oh, I've got an answer. I've got an answer, right? The 5 line always comes forward because it really, truly, in the depths of your soul, want to help people. You know that you came here as a strong person, the role model that can say, well, the wounded healer is usually what the 5 line comes at. I'm going to
Mm.
come through it, and then I
Yes.
know how to heal you, right?
Yes,
And
as I
so
heal myself and all the modalities that I work with, and it like resonates very deeply, like to my core, the essence, as we were talking about in the series. Then because I felt that and I know it's true, then I come from that space of truth and compassion and offer for others. So that's something that I'm always driven with. Yes.
Yeah. And so that's kind of like what we call the costume, right? Like this is how you energetically showed up to do this thing. You've got your aura, that generator aura that creates its own aura. And this is how you stay on path. And then you've got your profile, which is kind of like, what are the energetics that I came here to do it with, right? And then I love to look at the incarnation cross and see, why did you come? And it's interesting. I have a lot of cross of laws in my life. I just keep seeing it over and over and over again. And you have the right cross of laws, which is really, you have this real like integrity and really deeply understanding like maybe what's wrong with rules or how to fix them or how to do them better. But really, anytime people come into your life, they're coming into your life because they need to kind of shake up how they're thinking about things. And you're really good at that, right? Like you're really good at taking it in and sussing out what's true and what's not, and bringing it forward for them in a new way.
Yes, just even shifting the language or just the perspective a little bit for others, because even myself, right? We get boxed in, our minds box us in. We can't see past our beliefs about ourselves or about a situation. And until somebody says, oh, wait, there's a little exit door over there, and have you thought about taking that option, or just shifting their perspective, I should say, such as all these podcasts that I do. That's the main reason is, yes, I'm kind of talking about the same thing, but I'm offering it in different ways. So that way it resonates with different people, because not everybody likes vanilla. They want some chocolate, or they want strawberry. It's still ice cream.
But you still are talking to that guest and making sure they have some integrity with it, right? Because that's a big through line for you. When you come across a cross of laws, that they're kind of making sure to do their homework a little bit and make sure that it really does feel true for them.
Thank you for saying that, Angela. It's so true. Right? That attention on your intention. What are you showing up for? And then how are you applying it? It's just not absorbing all this information and saying, oh, wow, that was wonderful. I can't wait to listen to the next one. I like it. Yeah, I like that people are interested. But what are you doing with this information? How are you seeing it supporting you or others? Passing the information on, sharing these recordings with others, so that way other people understand that they're worth more. There's a lot more to them than just the mundane 9-to-5 life.
And I'd love to get everybody out of that, unless that really calls to you. Some people,
they're happy,
they
and
love
content.
the stability and they can do it, and maybe just they could grab a couple of tools to make themselves even show up as a better version of them in that, right?
Yes.
And that's fine too. But if you're a person like I was, sitting in a 9-to-5 going, how do I get out of this? Understanding yourself and truly, it doesn't matter what happens outside of me now. I trust myself, and I did not before. I did not.
Trust is huge, isn't it? Interesting, because a lot of people, from my experience and from witnessing others, they want people to validate them. They want other people to say, oh, yes, you're this. And then it's like, oh, okay, yes, now I can do that. Giving permission. You need to give permission to yourself, really. And then that invokes the trust. I can trust myself on this next step.
And when you deeply question these, whether you do the Enneagram or you do the human design or you do astrology or you just do a workshop that has you write out all these things, when you ask the question and you can kind of really understand that, you get to like, this is who I am. You're not going to tell me who I am. You're not going to, dissuade me from being me. And I love all these tools that show us how different we are too, because a lot of times we're trying to figure out how we're the same. And there's so much beauty. You and I have some similarities in our charts. We have a lot of differences, but I can see how they interact perfectly to bring about something different, to help me see the world in a different way, to help you see the world in a different way, to bring something together in a different way. I just love our differences that we can.
Yes. And they're just qualities. They're just different approaches, different ways of seeing the world and interacting, and that's okay.
Yeah. And we both kind of have the same soul mission, right? We're just going about it in a different way. And when we come together, we get a whole new thing. You have the 48 and I have the 16, and together, whoa, now you've brought so much more depth to me, and I've brought some tools to you. I've brought some enthusiasm about it, right?
Yes.
I just love looking at it. So then I would just keep kind of digging and seeing, like, okay, let's look at some of the circuitry. You've got this very individual circuitry that's a root to the sacral that says, I get this on and off pulse, this really strong on and off pulse. And a lot of people make that wrong. There are a lot of people that have, I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of people in my life have this on and off pulse, and they get this really like burst of energy, and they can go do all this stuff, and then they get kind of shut down, and it's like, done. I'm not going out today. I'm not doing anything today. But in society, what does that make people think? Sometimes it makes them think maybe they're lazy, or maybe they're depressed, or maybe they're selfish, or maybe there's so many negative connotations that could come with you saying, I'm not leaving for a weekend, right? Like, I need a me weekend, or I need a me. But that's what this pulse is. This pulse says, hey, I went out and I shared and I did all this stuff, and now I need to shut down. I need to cocoon in, because I need to create something new out of this energy. And I can't do that with all these people and all this stuff going on.
Yes, I get very overstimulated. I was just in Tucson, spent some wonderful quality time, girl time. But when I returned back, I developed like like some congestion, and I even had to reschedule our first interview, but I was okay with that. It was like, nope, you need to pause, you need to be here. And literally, I didn't leave our camper for like 2 days. And I was fine with that. It's just, I kind of go in, just like you said, I'm like a little hermit crab, and then I'll come out, do my podcast, connect with people, but it's not a constant, I got to do. I'm very mindful of that, and my energy and how I feel.
Yeah. And so if anybody looks at their chart and they see this, their root to their sacral, this 360 channel, that is part of you, right? And so you can take this in and be like April and say, that's just who I am, and I'm going to self-care that way, right? Like, I understand this, and I'm not going to make this wrong. And I did a reading for a gal that was really pushing, and she was just so burnt because she wasn't allowing herself to have this in this cocoon time, and I just said, if you gave yourself that cocoon time, like, just figure it out, not from the mind, figure it out. What could you really create, right? Like, if you weren't always trying to create from a burnout spot, but you were seeing, and now
you can't create from a space of from that place. That's for sure.
She's an artist, and she is creating the most beautiful art. And I'm just like, my heart sings when I see that she's cocooning, and then she's coming out, and this art is like So amazing, right?
That's amazing. Yes. And I love how you are there to help unpack that and guide people so that way they can really understand their own essence, where how they're designed, no pun intended, and give ourselves more grace. Really, that's what it's about, because we
Yeah.
tend to compare ourselves to other people and why, this person is like go, 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 and they make all these amazing magical things happen. Why can't I do that? I'm trying to do the same thing, but it's because we're in that mode of comparison, and that's not us. We have our own qualities to focus on. So I love that you bring that all together so that way people can understand what
Yeah.
works for them and notice when you need to cocoon or you need to pause,
Yeah.
how that
It's
helps.
some people are the hair, right? Like they are on all the time. There are people with this 3420 that's always busy. Like those are the people, the busiest people you've ever seen. And they're always busy. I have a family member that's one always busy, always go, 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 go. And sometimes I think, man, I wish I had that kind of energy. But that's not how I'm set up, right?
Yes.
That's not how I'm set up. It's when
Yes.
we allow ourselves to be who we are that we get to show up full. Our tank is full, right? Like that person does, their tank is full when they're moving.
Exactly. I'm more about the quality of things versus the quantity. And I think also in the past, I would get hung up on watching all those people do that. And I would project myself into them in their doing, and I would get exhausted just thinking about it. And then I would try and tell them to slow down
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
would feel that exhaustion when it wasn't even mine. So now I'm able to pause like you, Angela, be the observer and say, oh, look at them doing them. That's awesome. They're
Yeah.
they're, they're doing what feels good to them, and that's perfectly fine. And I can just sit in my little cocoon and do me.
Exactly. Exactly. We can allow people to be them when we can appreciate the way that's best for us, right? And
Yes.
and I've never ever told anybody anything that they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." Like when I tell you or tell anybody their pulses or maybe their emotional wave, they understand it. They've just maybe made it wrong. You've done a lot of work, and so you didn't need me to tell you. But some people do. Some people need that permission because they've made it wrong. Maybe a family member has told them that they were
Yes.
wrong for it. Maybe just social media or just looking around at other people, because we just all have a different way of showing up and how our energy really works best. And I just really love to highlight that for people. What's correct for you.
Yes. And let's go back to that, Angela, about our upbringing a little bit and how our caregivers, they didn't know, right? They're only working from their own belief systems, their own subconscious, their design. And when we did something that didn't align with what they were, then they would think that something was wrong. So, for
Yeah.
example, I don't think my sister would mind me saying this. I was an athlete. I ran track. Um, I was, very physical in my youth, still am. And my sister was not. She was a bookworm. She loves to read. She still loves to read. But unfortunately, my father would press upon her about, you need to get out and do this, you need to do that, all of that, because that's who he was. And she wasn't that way. So I can see that now. Well, I saw that, when I started doing my own work and saw the dynamics and how that was unfolding. But I think it's really important for people to hear that so that way they can first of all, forgive themselves for something that was not theirs to begin with, and then forgive or find compassion for their caregivers of they were only doing what they felt was right, or for
Yeah.
their children, or
Yeah.
I think you're getting what I'm saying.
I love using human design. I use it on my kids, and actually my mom, I have her human design and we talk about it, and it gave me a lot of clarity because she's a projector. Projectors are a non-energy type, right? They're really good at guiding. She had 3 generator kids, and she always would crack me up because we'd get out of the car and we'd be going. And she, as soon as we all forward motion, she'd put her arms out and she'd say, wait, let's think about this. And she'd stop this generator energy and kind of like guide it, right? Just naturally. But for her, she was so exhausted by work, right? As a projector, when she's really good at focusing in, and she's really good at working hard, right? But when you work 8 hours a day and then you come home and take care of 3 kids, and she was pretty much doing it by herself. My dad just liked to work. He's a generator. He'd just go to work and he'd do him, and he'd get, and she was doing it all. And she's a projector who doesn't create their own energy, that does have to unplug a little bit, right? Like take a break, take a step back. But she didn't know this. And so she's just pushing and pushing and pushing. And so when it came time for me to think about going to college or this or that, and I'm a manifesting generator. I've got a coffee cup my kids bought me, always learning, because I am always learning, right? I'm like interested in this and interested in this I love all the different things, and I'll learn 3 things at once, right? Because I need a lot of stimulation for my brain. And I just know that about myself now, right? And so I'll learn something and then I'll have to take a break from that, but I don't want to stop learning. So I'll learn something else. And it just gives me what I need. But for her, it was like I was a fart in the skillet. The grass is always greener, right? Like, and she was so worried about me. She's a Capricorn, right? She was so worried about me. Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm a
Capricorn, you're grounded. Like you have to make a living, right? Capricorn knows that. I'm a Gemini, I'm air, right? She's like, you got to make a living, trying to keep me grounded. But it wasn't what I needed. I needed full, you can do anything, you can explore all these topics.
Yeah,
someday it will come together for you, right? And I didn't get that. And she understands that now. And we talk about it. And it's not her fault, because she was just coming at it from what her energy was exhausted by thinking about starting a business. That sounds exhausting. It still exhausts her, right? Like she still is like, are you sure? This sounds scary. Like, no, it's okay. I understand who you are, and I understand who I am, and I can do it differently. And now she understands, and she really supports me in this. And of course she feels a little bit of guilt and wants to go back, and like, no, it's all perfect. But now do I look at my kids' designs? One of them's a couch potato that's an athlete, right? When he turns on, he turns on. And when he's not, he's laying flat on the couch, not moving, right? Like that's who he is. And I don't say, you need to get up and move, because I know as soon as the on switch comes, he always gets up and moves. He goes and he practices basketball, and he goes for a run, and he's 12 and he does it on his own, because that's who he is. And I know that. My other son is like me. He's energy and bouncing, and I let him be him too, right? I understand his energy. I let him be him, and maybe try to help guide it a little bit, but not ever make it wrong.
Yes. And that really helps with the judgment. And I think like just the example of my sister and I, and how my father was responding, comparing or judging. And so there was maybe some shame in that for her. But it's really important for people who are in that family context, when you're living with other people, to understand it's okay for them to be that way, because it's not you. I think we project ourselves onto that person, and think they should be doing this, they should be doing that. And when you just allow them to be who they are, seeing as you describe, it's just really having that compassion
Yeah.
and trusting,
Yeah.
because I think also in our society, parents feel the pressure of kids having to be academically this way or be in the sports or have some sort of talent, to show their value. And then the
Yeah.
parents take that on themselves, beyond pride. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. If you're a parent that loves your kids and has them in all these activities and things, lovely. Although if you hear your kid constantly complain about, why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
Maybe selecting just one activity,
Yeah.
versus five. you know I don't know, but it's having more compassion and understanding. And the better you are at that, the long-term relationship with your children and your family members, it just grows. I've just
Yeah.
noticed that for myself. I'm so grateful.
I
um,
think that nurturing what really lights our child up, we can look and we can see what lights them up. And when we can train them to never lose that, guidance system of what lights me up, then they get to create their path. And I mean, we've seen even this influencer time where what is it, Mr. Beast? He just makes he's a very big YouTuber, I know, because I have 12 and 10-year-old boys. But he does it in a very heart-centered way. But he just started making videos and he gives things away and he's very entrepreneurship or whatever. But he made his way. He does what he loves, right? Like there's new ways of doing what you love that are coming about, that these kids, they could create anything, right? Like I can't wait to see what my kids come up with, right? I can't wait to see how they
yeah.
create. And I'm just going to be there being their biggest cheerleader and
Yes.
yeah, just really
And just as
seeing
you
that.
said, Angela, in the beginning, we're expanding. It's a constant change and expansion. And the new generation, these younger people growing up after this big global shift, how is that going to shift things and their views and all that? And just being open and
Yeah.
curious of, oh, I wonder how that's going to happen, instead of saying, oh, the world is going to crap, or, whatever that is, right? It's like,
Yeah.
really, people, come on now. There's been so many shifts throughout generations,
Yeah.
as you even said it in the beginning, right? That things are always shifting, and it's just seeing how it comes up. It's really murky, right? It's like when you
We're
stir the
creating
pot,
our
or
universe, right? Like
yeah,
we are creating. So if you're saying, oh, it's going to crap, you're creating that, right? Like we
you're
get
creating
to
your own
create.
crap, and
Yeah.
you're responsible for that.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
said that many times. You're responsible for your thoughts, you're responsible for your emotions and your
Mm-hmm.
behaviors. No one can make you do, say, or think anything. Although when you're young, you take on people's stuff, but as you get older, you can recognize that, such as I have, and really identify, like, is this serving me? Is this
Yeah.
supporting me? This is
Yeah.
my father's voice. This isn't mine. That type of thing, to where then you can shift the script, I say.
And the universe gives us, I believe that we're Earth is a school, right? And when I learned astrology, it tells me that Saturn is here as my teacher and it has these cycles and there's these perfect times. Just the other day, I had so many breakthroughs. I'm not everyone that forces myself to like go back to this age, and sit down and do the inner child work. I don't force it. It always comes up for me naturally, right? And so the other day we were supposed to have our call and you weren't feeling well, and it was perfect because I was having breakthroughs about things that had happened at a certain
Ah,
age And it was written in the stars that this was the day, I had a transit, that I had to go through that and I had to see it. And it's like, you could just write it off as a bad day and not grow from it. Or you can be like, ooh, what's here for me, and get curious.
Mhm.
And so I love co-creating with the universe, or the, all of that. I love when things are a little bit tough, when I'm feeling really disconnected and like the world's against me, because I know there's a lesson in there for me and I
Oh
can't
yeah, it's
wait to
asking
uncover it.
you. It's actually inviting you to pause, and it's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it as like energetically a contraction. So for all of those who have given birth, right? And so things are going along well, and then all of a sudden it's like a contraction,
Yep.
and it's like, ooh, something kind of, oh, you could feel that. Okay, what's here for me? How is this showing up? Why? Not going too much into the weeds, like you said, although, just being mindful of, oh, I'm experiencing a contraction. This is
Yeah.
growth.
So just like you said, that contraction, that really, I felt like I was going backwards and reliving an old story again that I thought I had moved past. But I got a new layer of it. And I love that birth story for you, the contraction, because when you have a contraction, the baby does move back a little bit so it can move forward, right?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Yes. Great. I love just hearing about human design and getting a little deeper into that with you. And so that way we can understand more of who we are and our true essence. And so that way we can move forward with a little bit more clarity and understanding of ourselves as we continue to explore on this journey here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really beautiful tool if it calls to you, because it calls to you, right? Like if you,
Yeah.
maybe it's not like, oh, I'm going to learn everything about it like it was for me. But if it's like, that's interesting, or
Yeah.
something comes up, then yeah, do a little bit of a dive. Look up your chart. Anybody can look up their chart. It might look a little confusing at first, but I promise you, it can be very simple. And that's what I love to do for people, is kind of break it down to its simplest form and make it very understandable and very actionable, right? Like we
Yes.
don't want to just, I've had so many readings and I'd get the reading and I'd be like, oh, great. And then what do I do with this?
Mm,
How do I make it actionable? How do I take this information and put it into my life?
yeah. Yes. And besides human design, Angela, what other gifts do you offer for others?
Yeah, I love it. Just depends. So, a human design reading is really going to take the full hour. So, if you book me for an hour, I'm probably going to have to deep dive on human design for that hour. But I mean, I'm here for you. So, if you if somebody wants to talk to me about other things, I do throw astrology in there because I really love. There are so many useful tools in astrology to figure out kind of purpose and how your energy interacts, just like there are in human design, just like gene keys. Usually I give people an assignment for gene keys because I don't really teach gene keys. Actually, Richard Rudd doesn't even really teach gene keys, the founder of gene keys. It's a contemplation. He offers it to contemplate. But when I'm working with somebody that wants to work longer term, I use hypnosis to kind of, and it's just a very light hypnosis because I usually do everything online. Just a very light, let's get that head out of there for a second
Mm,
and see what's going on. I love to integrate tapping. There's a
I
lot of
love
times.
tapping too. I do. If I feel any resistance or something coming up, that even though I've done my best to think positive thoughts, to shift it and it's still coming up, I will
Yeah.
tap and it literally lifts
Yeah.
it away. So
It was
just,
the most helpful tool for me when I was going through a really anxiety ridden time. And that one helped me leave my house, helped me get in my car and drive. And it just does. It just kind of helps
Mhm.
move that energy. Emotion is just energy in motion. And
It
sometimes we
is.
get a little trapped emotion that tapping just moves, right?
It does. And you don't have to know why either. I think a lot of people want to know all of that, and that just gets you the mind caught up into it instead
Yeah.
of just being with it and allowing that and just witnessing how you feel afterwards. It's like Reiki,
Yeah.
just witnessing that calmness, that release, and feeling better, because that's
Yeah.
what we all want, is to feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those who really want to feel good and connect with you, Angela, what is your contact information?
Yeah, you can go. My website is evolvingonpurpose.org. And so you can go there, and that'll actually, I have a podcast called Evolving on Purpose. So you can go listen to my podcast. You can click on my Instagram or my Facebook and follow me there. I post a few things, usually podcast stuff, but I will come up with human design little tidbits if I have something to respond to. I don't always. I'm not just putting out stuff to put out stuff. So yeah, I have my Instagram, Facebook, my website. You can email me if you just have a question and you want to know whether this would be right or this would be right. I always recommend just starting with a reading, and I'll discount anything else moving forward. It's just really nice to test people out and see if it's right, and you're always going to get so much from learning more about your human design.
Yes, and if anything, it just kind of opens the door to more opportunities too.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being who you are. I so enjoyed this connection and sharing you with the community. And I look forward to possibly having you back on, and maybe me jumping over to your podcast and sharing some good stuff over there. Yeah, I love the
For sure.
collaboration, right? Building community and keeping that going.
Yes, yes. No, this was wonderful. I was brought to you by a friend was talking about how wonderful you are, and then started listening to the podcast, and I really appreciate you and really loved being here.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Angela. And thank you, everyone, for being here, whether you're watching or listening. I hope that um, enjoyed this and could take some little tidbits away as you are exploring your essence, to bring yourself back to you, because that's what we're all here for. And if you did enjoy this, please hit subscribe. Let us know that this is something that you are interested in, because I really appreciate that support, as Angela will too. And until next time, my friends, be well.